In today's video, I want to talk about the Dallas Mavericks and why I actually think that this team might be legitimate championship contenders for the NBA title in 2022. This is a team here who, another one of those teams who really ever since 2022 hit, they've been on an absolute roll as a team, and right now they're sitting at a 50-win record. They have 50 wins and 30 losses and are sitting in 4th place in the Western Conference with 2 games left in their season, only a half game back of 3rd place. The Golden State Warriors are sitting there right now. So basically this team has really improved, especially on the defensive end of the floor, which was definitely very surprising for a lot of NBA fans, including myself. And I think that this team, like I said, might be legitimate contenders for the NBA title this year. They've always kind of been that 4th or 5th seeded team over the last 2 or 3 years, ever since they've had Luka Doncic leading their team. And while they still are in that category in the standings, I think that this year could definitely be a different type of year for the Mavericks. They've gotten bounced in the first round in back-to-back years and put up a good fight, but I think this is the year they make it past that first round and maybe even to the Western Conference final, and potentially we could even see this team in the NBA Finals this year. So with that being said, let's get into the analysis on why this team might be a dark horse to actually take it all this year. So let's start off by talking about the Mavericks offense and really the simple but dominant offensive system that they have, and specifically focus in here on Luka Doncic. Of course, he is the one who anchors this offense. He's the one who leads them, and Luka's just improvement throughout the season has been incredible. This is a guy who got off to a really slow start to the year. There was one point where he was shooting almost under 40% from the field and almost under 30% from 3, a good chunk into the season too. This wasn't just really like a small sample size type thing, and I think Luka was really getting used to some of the new things in the NBA this year, like a lot of players were. For example, the new ball. I know it doesn't seem like a big difference, but the usual Spalding ball isn't part of the NBA anymore. It's the Wilson ball, and I think overall with that, combined with the new foul rules and how offensive players aren't allowed to initiate contact anymore to try to get those foul calls that they usually got, just some of these changes, I think that brought down scoring just a little bit across the entire NBA really, and the stats definitely showed that a little bit. And for Luka specifically, they definitely showed, and his shooting especially was way off, and he just didn't look like himself out there on the floor. But as the season went on, his shot especially has gotten a lot better. He's scoring way more efficient and actually shooting over 45% from the field now and about 35% from 3, which over the course of a whole season, to bring your percentages up in both of those categories by 5% is extremely impressive. Luka's been shooting the ball really well, and what stands out for me about Luka is his playmaking. I honestly would go as far to say that he might be the number 1 playmaker in the NBA right now, especially just with what he's doing recently. The Mavericks offensive system is really so simple. There is a lot of pick and roll action with Luka and either guys like Maxi Kleber or Dwight Powell, who can run the 5 for this team. There's a lot of pick and roll action, and Luka does a really good job of throwing lobs and also just himself driving into the paint. And whether he's even just in the paint a lot or at the mid-range area, he definitely attracts a lot of attention because of how good of a scorer he is, and because of that attention he creates, it allows guys on the floor to get wide open. And I really think that the supporting cast on this Mavs team has realized that a lot of their jobs are just to stretch the floor and sometimes even just stand in the corner and just wait for that pass, and you're going to be wide open because of how much attention Luka can create when he drives into the paint. Overall, Luka is such a great playmaker. He has a very high IQ. He does a great job of finding those open teammates and making those passes to really rack up a lot of assists and just create open shots for his team, whether that's kicking it out to the perimeter for a 3 or throwing a lob to one of his big men. He just does a great job of that, makes very good passes, and overall is a great playmaker. And then Luka's defense this year has been very good as well, and I'm going to talk about the Mavericks defense as a team and as a whole a little bit later on. But Luka especially, I think him really buying in on the defensive end of the floor this year might have really been that difference for this Mavericks team becoming a good defensive team, because this is a team here who has definitely in the last 2 years, led by Luka, been an under average defensive team, and that was their main weakness. But this year they've actually really improved their defense. And like I said, I'm going to touch on this a little bit more in depth later on, but Luka has done a good job defensively. He's been a good on-ball defender, an over-average defender in the league, and it really just starts with the effort that he's putting into that onto the floor, the energy he's bringing, and just how he's bought into his role defensively, as well as the incredible stuff he's been doing offensively, especially recently. And I would argue that pretty much ever since 2022 started, I think Luka's been playing the best basketball of his career, probably the best stretch. When we look at his numbers over the course of the entire season, he's averaging over 28 points per game, just over 9 rebounds per game, and just under 9 assists per game, over a 45% field goal percentage, and shooting about 35% from 3. And you can't forget to, like I mentioned, that these numbers are brought down a little bit by the horrendous start that he had. In 2022, these numbers are obviously a lot higher, and he's just been completely dominating, and definitely probably for me top 5 in MVP voting right now. I'd probably have him 4th on my MVP list, behind, of course, Jokic, Embiid, and Giannis Antetokounmpo. So overall, Luka's just been fantastic. Look at how long I've talked about him. This is just how much of an impact he has on this Mavericks team. Everything offensively evolves around Luka for this Mavericks team, and he's really what's led them to this point. In terms of the rest of the Mavericks offense, I mean, pretty much everything evolves around Luka, and I think really the rest of the supporting cast has done a good job, especially recently, of buying into their roles of just a lot of them just kind of being off-ball players, guys that can cut to the basket at times when they need to, roll to the basket in kind of the pick and rolls that Luka's been running with the big men, and just spread the floor most of the time and just shoot threes when your time comes. I mean, the Mavericks are in the bottom half of the league in terms of team 3-point percentage, shooting about 34.7% from 3, but recently this has definitely been a lot higher. At the start of the year, the supporting cast as well as Luka was not shooting the ball well at all, but like I said, I think these guys have really bought into their role of just being catch and shoot type of guys that are just there to stretch the floor and knock down threes when they're supposed to, and most of the time at least. Guys like Dorian Finney-Smith, Reggie Bullock, Maxi Kleber, Josh Green, and definitely a lot more. All of these guys have done a really good job throughout the year, and especially recently, of being those floor spacers for the Mavericks, catching those passes from most of the time Luka, and knocking down those threes. And these guys also do a good job of swinging that ball in the perimeter when Luka kicks it out to them. Obviously, they're not shooting all the time. Sometimes they're driving into that paint, kicking it back out, creating more opportunities for this offense. And overall, over the course of this season, the Mavericks only have the 14th ranked offensive rating in the league. But recently, again, that's definitely been a lot higher, and overall the flow of this offense is getting a lot better, all led by Luka, and the supporting cast have done a good job of playing their role of being off-ball players, driving and kicking when they need to, and knocking down those threes especially. When Luka's out of the game, Jalen Brunson is the guy who's done a really good job running this offense as well. When he is in the game with Luka, he again does a good job of being a floor spacer and kind of that secondary playmaker for the team, and when he's out of the game, he does a fantastic job of kind of running the offense almost like Luka would, with just a little bit less 3-point shooting and obviously less dominant. But Brunson's been very efficient this year overall. He's averaging over 16 points per game, about 5 assists per game, shooting over 50% from the field and over a 58% true shooting, well above average in both of those categories, especially for a point guard. And he's also a great shooter as well. Villanova product that I watched a lot in college. I knew this kid was going to be good. He also gives a lot of defensive energy, and he has really done a good job of being really that second option and second best player for this Mavericks team as well, which has contributed a lot into their offense as well. Overall, the flow of this Mavericks offense has definitely been really good recently, but I think the key for them throughout this whole season, especially in January and February, has really been their defense. And let's switch focus over to this, because again, the Mavericks' defensive style and defensive schemes and everyone just really buying in on that end of the floor has been the key for them this season. Overall, over the course of the whole season, they have the 7th ranked defensive rating in the NBA. In January, they had the 2nd best defensive rating in the whole league, and in February, they had the 4th best defensive rating in the league. Like I mentioned earlier, Luka buying in to just giving more effort on the defensive end of the floor has been a huge key for them, and you can tell that this team just, with Jason Kidd, just put a lot of time into practicing their defense, because this was not a good defensive team, and not a lot of changes in terms of personnel on this team really happened. They just became a better defensive team by doing a lot of things. It's not really overly complicated. They just put a lot of work into this. Their individual defenders have been a lot better. Luka guarding one-on-one has been good this season. Dorian Finney-Smith has been one of the better defenders in the NBA this year. Jalen Brunson's been a great perimeter defender. Dwight Powell, especially recently, has been quite a good rim protector for this team. And overall, they just have a lot of great individual defenders, and their team defense has just gotten a lot better as well. The communication on this team, how they're able to rotate very well and be quick on their feet, and just overall be good on rotations. They shrink the floor when they need to. They overhelp on drives, and this team does a really good job of being smart defensively, not just good and talented and putting in the effort, but being smart. They don't really contest a lot of threes, and they do contest the threes when they need to, but this is because the Mavericks defense does a really good job of playing the percentages and being smart. They know the guys on the floor, their strengths and weaknesses. They play smart, and they're willing to allow open shots when it's not a very high percentage shot for the other team. They also, so one thing that stood out to me, they do a really good job of getting back in transition. Another thing here that really just speaks to the effort that they're putting in on that defensive side of the floor. I think Jason Kidd and a lot of the supporting players on this team, and definitely Luka Doncic, realized going into this year that defense is what this team really needs to work on and really buy into, and they've absolutely done that, and I think that's really been the key to their success this season. Overall, recently, the Mavericks have had probably a top 10 offense and defense in the league, and what really separates this team from their past years is how much their supporting cast has bought into their roles offensively, how Luka's been a little bit more dominant recently than really he's ever been in his career, and especially how good this defense has been and just how different that is, because especially last year in the playoffs, both times actually in the bubble and last year, especially last year when the Mavericks were facing the LA Clippers in the first round, they really had to try to outslug them, outscore them, and win games 125 to 120 and stuff like that, because this team just did not have good enough defense, good enough individual defense, good enough team defense to keep up and legitimately contend with a team like the Clippers. So now that they are a good defensive team, I could definitely see this team getting past the first round this season. And realistically, I don't really think, if I had to predict who's gonna make it further between the Phoenix Suns and the Dallas Mavericks, I would not take the Mavericks. I would definitely take the Phoenix Suns, and I've been very vocal about that off camera and on this channel about why I think the Phoenix Suns are by far the best team in the NBA and why I think they're going to win the NBA championship this year. But honestly, I think if I had to choose a second best team in the West right now, I would probably go with the Dallas Mavericks. I think they're playoff built. I think they're definitely just really ready for the playoffs, and I think if I was filling out a bracket as of right now, I might have a Suns versus Mavericks Western Conference final, and then who knows what happens if Devin Booker or Chris Paul gets injured and the Mavericks are able to stay healthy. You never know, and this is combined with everything that I've said in today's video. I think this is the real reason that the Mavericks as a team are true championship contenders this year, and they might be able to win it all. They might have to get a little bit lucky with the Suns kind of standing in their way, but like I said, I think probably right now they're the second best team, second most ready for the playoffs in my opinion. That might be a little bit of a hot take, but that's what I think, and I think this team could definitely make it to the Western Conference final and potentially win the NBA championship, and they're definitely in that conversation. So that's my analysis on the Dallas Mavericks. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure you subscribe if you're new, and make sure you guys comment down below your thoughts on the Dallas Mavericks and if you think they're legitimate championship contenders this season. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all next video.